morning, everyone. I'm Cedric Jan David, reporting about elements of art and principles of design. So let's start about the elements of art. Elements of art are stylistic qualities that are incorporated into a work of art, aid the artistic in communicating line, shape, texture, form, space, color, and value are the seven most common elements, with mark variation and laterally thrown in a, for a good measure.
Line is the path created when an object moves from one point to another. In the visual arts, lines are made when you draw or paint marks on a paper or canvas, or when materials such as wood, glass, and metal are bent or shaped. Lines are also made by photographers and filmmakers when they choose how to angle their cameras and how to compose their shots. Lines can be horizontal, vertical, or diagonal, straight, curved, or free form. They can be thick or thin, light or dark. Sometimes one line can be all of those things. Lines can be described in many ways: dashed, dotted, rough, smooth, zigzag, implied. What qualities do you see in these lines? How would you describe them? Every artist has a unique way of making lines. It's one way of expressing their individual style. This is a self-portrait by Jean-Michel Basquiat. His lines might be described as bold, jagged, almost messy at times. What do these lines make you think of? Why might he have chosen to represent himself in this way? Compare that to the faint, seemingly unfinished quality of this self-portrait by David Hockney. What do his lines suggest to you? Do they make you think or feel differently than the Basquiat self-portrait? If you were drawing a self-portrait, what kinds of lines would you choose to represent yourself? What kinds of lines would communicate the messages you want viewers to think about? The next time you are looking at a sculpture, painting, or drawing, try to notice what kinds of lines are used and interpret what they mean to you.
Type of lines. Vertical lines are straight up and down and perpendicular to horizontal lines. Horizontal lines are straight up and down and perpendicular to vertical lines. Diagonal lines are lines that straight in any direction except vertical or horizontal lines. Zigzag lines are a series of diagonal lines joined end to end. Curved lines are lines that bend in any amount of degree. They may be gently wavy to tightly wound spiral. Variation of lines. Line comes in many varieties. They may be long, short, or anything in between. Be thick, thin, be smooth or rough. Be continuous, implied, dotted, dashed. Change direction, change in degree of curved lines. Be any of the above combined. Some ways artists use line to outline a starting place for many drawings or paintings to suggest moods or emotion. Lines can appear calm, nervous, angry, etc. to lead the viewer's eye through a work of art. To create lightness or darkness, lines placed close together appear darker than those placed further from each other. To create texture, roughness, or smoothness. Common types of line drawings. Contour line drawing. Drawing that use a fairly continuous line to represent the edges and surface detail of shape or object being drawn. Gestural line. Drawing that use quick pencil stroke or other drawing instrument to capture a scene. Gestural drawings imply action and movement and cross hatch line drawing. Drawing that consists or parallel lines hatching or crossing parallel lines cross hatching.
Good day, Mom. Good day, future educators. I'm gonna tackle about shapes. A shape is a two-dimensional design encased by lines to signify its height and width structure and can have different values of color used within it to make it appear three-dimensional. In animation, shapes are used to give a character a distinct personality and features, with the animator manipulating the shapes to provide new life. There are different types of shapes an artist can use in full under either geometrical, defined by mathematics, or organic shapes created by the artist. Simplistic, geometrical shapes include circles, triangles, and squares, and provide a symbolic and synthetic feeling, whereas acute angled shapes with sharp points are perceived as dangerous shape. Rectilinear shapes are viewed as dependable and more structurally sound, while curvilinear shapes are chaotic and adaptable. The quality of a distinct object or a body in having an external surface or outline of a specific form or figure. This is the external form, contours or outline of someone or something. There's a lot of types of shapes. One of those are the triangle, circle, square, rectangular, hexagon, and many more. The positive shapes is the shapes of actual objects, and the negative shapes is the areas between these objects. The way positive and negative shapes act together to create the atmosphere of a composition. In most forms of arts, shapes may be considered positive or negative depending on how they are used. The open and closed shapes. The open shapes have a gap or gaps in between. The closed shapes have no openings or gaps. Important role of shapes in the creation of art. They help to create complex drawings and paintings. It affects compositions and contribute to the balance within the work. The shape is a two-dimensional area that is defined by a change in value or some other form of contrast.
Morning everyone, my name is Jaylene Cortez. This is the continuations of the elements of design. Form is very similar to the element of design shape. The difference is that the term form is used in artwork that has the three dimensions instead of two as shapes. The three dimensions are length, width, and depth.
Form refers to 3D objects, that is, objects having height, width, and depth. And like shapes, there is a range of standard forms, known as solids. These solids are the sphere, cube, pyramid, cylinder, and cone. In traditional studio art, these forms are often assembled together into what is called a still life that allows artists to study the interplay of light and shadow in 3D space. There's even fancy terms to describe the quality of light on these
forms. As with geometric shapes, geometric forms are based on mathematical descriptions. Since they are three-dimensional, 3D, instead of two-dimensional, they are objects such as cubes, cylinders, cones, and spheres. Free-form or organic forms. Organic forms are irregular and are the type of forms that most things in the nature are cloud formations, mountains, trees, and bushes are all relatively free-form. Animals and even humans tend to be more free-form too, as they are even changing forms.
Geometric and organic shapes. Geometric shapes are made out of points and lines connecting the points in a closed chain. Such shapes includes circles, rectangle, squares, triangle, and many more. Geometric shapes are also variations or combinations of basic shapes. Here are the examples of geometric shapes: crescent, rectangle, pentagon, hexagon. Let's proceed to organic shapes. Organic shapes are associated with things from the natural world like plants and animals. Organic shapes have natural, flowing, irregular, and curving features. They are often found in nature. Here are the examples of organic shapes: leaf, flowers, tree.
Next is the three-dimensional media. Sculpture is the term most often for art that is made using three-dimensional media. They're referring about the sculpture design of the art and the product design. So that is the 3D dimensional media. Design of materials. The first is the clay. This is the material, plastic when moist, but it is hard. The second is the wood. This is the substance of the trunks or branches of the tree, which is used for the fuel or timber. The third is the stone. This is the hard substance of mineral matters, which is consist of the rocks. Number 4 is the cast metal. It is the process for molten metal, which is the empty shape space. Number 5 is the sheet metal. This is the form of flat pieces. The next is number 6 is wire. This is the kind of the thin, but it is a flexible thread or rod. So it is the materials, stretches, and a long line. Number 8 is the cardboard. This is the materials. This is the made of paper, but it is a thicker. Number 9 is the fibers. This is used from the manufactured of other materials. Number 10 is the cloth. It is the materials made from cotton. Number 11 is the plaster. This is the kind of sand, cement that mix with water. Number last is the paper match. This is the paper uses for the paste to create a variety of objects. So that's all. If you have any questions of my report, please hit the comment section below. Thank you.
A pleasant day to everyone. My name is Rafaela Natasha Cousin-Ferrer, Bachelor of Secondary Education, Section 1A, major in Social Studies, and I'm here to discuss about my topic, which is the element of design space. Elements of design space. The element of design space refers to the area within, around, above, or below an object or objects. It is important to creating and understanding both two-dimensional or three-dimensional works of art. The three-dimensional art are perceived from all sides and angles, and its pieces are presented in dimensions width, dimensions height, dimensions depth, and how it occupies its physical space. In two-dimensional art, this is definitely not the case. It is two-dimensional because its composition or possesses the dimensional length and width but does not possess depth. All two-dimensional pieces of art, such as drawings, paintings, and prints, are made up of shapes. The difference between two-dimensional art to three-dimensional art is because two-dimensional art is being conveyed in a flat surface, while the three-dimensional is something that looks realistic, such as sculptured statue. In creating the illusion of space, in sizes, the larger objects appear closer, while smaller objects further away. In overlapping, partially covering one shape, objects with another makes the one in front appear closer. In placement, where a shape or object is in relationship to the horizon line creates depth. Things closer to the horizon line appears further away. Objects closer to the bottom or top of your paper or canvas or etc. appear closer. Placement in relation to the horizon contributes to the illusion of space. Atmospheric perspective, objects as they recede into the distance between to the loose color brightens and details. Example of atmospheric perspective is in shading, adding light and shadow to the surface of an object to mimic the way real objects should appear under the same lighting. Linear perspective. This is a system of drawing developed during the Renaissance period of history, about 1400 to 1500. It uses lines that converge in vanishing points to achieve a more realistic illusion of space. Linear perspective is described by the number of vanishing points used 1 point, 2 point, or 3 point. Type most often are used alone, but they may be combined in complex drawing or paintings. Thank you.
Good day everyone. I'm going to discuss about value. The term value is used in the language of art to refer to the value of light. The more light, the higher the value. White is the highest or lightest value. On the other hand, black is the lowest or darkest value. Colors have value as well. For example, yellow. Yellow has a relatively high or light value, while violet has a relatively low value or dark. So, why value is important? Value is very important to drawing and painting because value changes are what create contrast. Contrast is needed to help us see and understand a two-dimensional work of art. Value contrast can also create interest in artworks. Our eyes tend to be drawn to areas of high contrast, so artists use this to show us what they think is important. Value scales. Value scales are charts that demonstrate the changing values of a tone. A typical value scale has incremental steps running from dark to light or vice versa. A scale may also be a continuous gradient of tones, where the change is blended and tonal steps are not visible.
The element of value. Value refers to the lightness or darkness of a given object, area, or color. In grayscale, this grayscale quality makes determining a value a bit tricky. Stay with me. Behold the color spectrum, and see how a fully saturated yellow is much lighter than a fully saturated blue. So to help us quantify just exactly how light or dark something is, artists traditionally use a 9-step scale of light to dark, where white is 1 and black is 9. 9 steps allows values to be comfortably grouped into 3 categories of highlights, midtones, and shadows. When bright highlights and deep shadows are put next to each other, this is known as contrast, which is essential for identifying objects, particularly for the legibility of type. In painting and illustration, complex work is often simplified through the creation of a value study. This allows the artist to dial in the proportions and composition first, before dealing with the challenges of color which are overlaid afterward. To create a sense of value, there is a range of techniques, including the use of a gradient, halftone pattern, swelling line, crosshatch, and dapple. And there it is, the remarkable element of value.
Elements of design. Color. Of all the elements of design, color is probably the most challenging to understand. We have to learn a little science to fully understand the nature of color. Color has 3 main properties: hue, value, and intensity. What is color? Color originates from a light source that is either viewed directly or as reflected light. Daylight or white light contains light waves for all colors. There are no color without light. The absence of light is complete darkness or black. The mixture of all visible light is white light. White light is made up of all the colors in the rainbow. Water droplets in the air act like a prism. Thus, when light passes through, it organizes random color light waves into the order of their wavelength. We see the organized pattern as rainbow. These colors always in the same order are called the color spectrum. When organized in order around a circle, the color spectrum is called the color wheel. How do we see color? In order to see color, there must be a light and there must also be a color receptors. Such as eyes, we see a colored light or light-reflected objects. So, why do we see some things as red and other things as blue? The answer is that when light waves trail an object, they are either absorbed or reflected by the object. The reflected light waves mixed in varying proportions are what we see as different colors. Primary colors. The three primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. The primary colors are red, yellow, and blue in artwork. They are considered primary colors because they cannot be made from us mixing other colors, but they may be mixed to make most other colors. Black and white can also be added to create additional colors. Secondary colors. Secondary colors are green, orange, violet, or purple. They are the colors that result in mixing two of the primary colors together in equal amounts. Secondary colors are made by mixing two primary colors together. Intermediate colors. Intermediate colors are made by mixing a primary color with one of its two adjacent secondary color. An adjacent color is one the next to a color in the color spectrum. Another way to remember this is to mix primary color with only of the secondary colors that is has in it. For example, yellow is used to make secondary color green and orange. So, only green and orange can be mixed with yellow to get an intermediate color. Each primary color had two secondary colors choices that may mix to produce an intermediate color. Properties of color. 1. Hue. Hue is the name of a pure color such as red, blue, or yellow. Number 2. Value is the lightness or darkness of hue color. The value of hue can be changed by adding black or white. Light values of colors are called tints. Darker values of colors are called shades. Number 2. Intensity. Intensity is the brightness or dullness of a hue color. Pure hues are high intensity color. Dull hues are low intensity colors. Intensity colors are changed by adding varying amounts of its complementary color. For example, to make a bright green color, a little bit of red could be added to it. Warm colors. Warm color are colors that remind us of things that are warm. They are red, yellow, and orange. Cold colors. Cold colors remind us of things we associate with cold or coldness. They are blue, violet, and green.
Drop it.
Good morning. I am Zaiki Mazalina, BSED major in Filipino. One of the elements of design is the texture. Texture refers to the surface quality in a work of art. We associate textures with the ways that things look or feel. Everything has some type of texture. We describe things as being rough, smooth, silky, shiny, and fuzzy, and so on. Some things feel just they appear. This is called real or actual. Some things look like they're rough, but are actually smooth. Texture that is created to look like something it is not is called visual or implied texture. Texture may be used in a work of art too. Create visual interest or a focal point in a composition. To create contrast within a design composition. To have visually balanced design composition. Real texture. Example of real texture is wood, pebbly sand. Visual texture is the real thing. Real texture cannot be represented here because a computer screen, even with the highest quality of photographs, can only create simulate textures. However, for the purpose of providing examples, assume that these images are real. Example of invented texture is an art that composed with different shapes and patterns to form an image in a creative way. Visual or implied texture can be simulated or invented. Simulated texture is a type that is created to look like something it is not. For example, in drawing a painting of a cat, where its fur is made to look like real fur. Invert in texture, on the other hand, may look rough, smooth, or any other feel but is purely made up by the artist. It does look like real texture. That is all. Thank you.